Time to bring in Dave
Thank
Richards.
you.
So, Dave, what's up, man?
Thank
How you
you.
doing?
I get
I'm
the
just
title.
glad Tyvis didn't get a single one right.
I got one right.
How'd you do, Dave?
You did?
Yeah,
Dave, what's up, Dave?
Whatever one he said.
Yo.
I got it right because of the G.
Dave, how'd you do in true or false?
I did terrible. When I thought about the Mobley OJ Mayo question, I was thinking Harold Miner might have been the first guy that USC recruited who was a former number one. So I got crushed.
You would think with all that great basketball talent in California that they would have gotten more number one recruits, but I guess not.
You ain't do worse.
No,
than me. I
UCLA
got
probably
2
has an edge on them when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, especially back in the day.
Dave, we're big into buys now. I've got a quarterback on buy, and there's no quarterbacks available, so I'm not gonna bother asking
I'll throw my
about
cards
that. But
in.
who are your hot players that, in general, anybody that wants to win should be looking to pick up?
So you missed out on the running backs, Jay. They went off the waiver wire like crazy. Guys like Gus Edwards and Deontay Foreman and Michael Carter, they're not available in even 3/4 of CBS Sports leagues anymore. Chuba Hubbard's out there in about 1/3 of leagues. I like him in PPR leagues. Latavius Murray, I mean, we're getting to the desperation point at running backs. He's still out there in about half of CBS Sports leagues. One guy that I think should be added in deeper leagues is JaMychal Hasty. He's the new backup running back in Jacksonville. But enough about the running backs. Wide receivers. Darnell Mooney's still out there in 40% of leagues. Wan'Dale Robinson in 50%. How about a Cleveland guy, Donovan Peoples-Jones, out there in 80% of leagues? He's someone that's put up at least 12 PPR points. I think 3 of his last 4 games with a floor of 9 in each of the 4. He's someone that I don't mind. If you need a tight end, Greg Dulcich. Can't say enough good things about him. He's out there in 65% of leagues. And Jay, Justin Fields is still out there. He's taking on Dallas this week. Not the easiest matchup, but 60% available in CBS leagues, and he's giving you at least 18 fantasy points in 3 straight games. He's starting to play better.
He really is.
Most leagues are. Do you play 2 quarterbacks?
I do.
Yeah, most leagues are. What percentage of leagues, Dave, would you say are 1 quarterback? Because I do all 2 quarterbacks also.
I believe it's
Superflex.
90%.
Or 1 quarterback.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Dave, getting back to the running backs for a minute, a couple of guys I wanted to bring up. You brought up Michael Carter with the Jets. Now, obviously, they traded for James Robinson. What do you expect? I mean, maybe beyond this week, because James Robinson's just getting there. But going forward, what's your anticipation of the cap? By the way, I want to give you credit. I haven't mentioned this before. For those who don't know, if you don't follow Dave on Twitter, you're making a huge mistake. But one of the things he does that's really great for fantasy people, and even if you're just an NFL fan, I don't know where he gets this information so quickly, but he tweets out the breakdown of the running game, like the percentage of carries and the percentage of just plays on the field for every running back, and then he specifies red zone carries as well, which is really great.
That's
information.
A great distinction.
I love that. I look at that all the time. So thank you for doing that. It's a great job, very helpful tool. But anyway, what do you think? Speaking of percentage breakdown, what do you think the Jets is going to be going forward?
I think it's going to end up being Carter is like the 1A and Robinson nipping on his heels as the 1B. Robinson working in short yardage goal line situations. And I would say Carter would be the better back on 3rd downs and passing downs. But Zach Wilson doesn't throw to his running backs very much. That's a trend that we saw from him, not just last year when he was a rookie and this year, but also in college. He just didn't like to do that. He likes to throw downfield. And the offense in general, the type of scheme that they run in New York, it's very similar to San Francisco, not a system that tends to favor targets to running backs. So I'm a little bit worried about the upside for Michael Carter. And the poor guy, ever since he got to the Jets, it's been, you got to share with this guy, then you got to share with that guy. And even in college, he had to share. So he's the poster child for tandem running backs in this league. He's the better talent, but it doesn't mean that he's going to get every single touch. They have not committed to playing James Robinson this week. If Robinson doesn't play this week for the Jets, Carter would be a number 2 fantasy running back. But I expect Robinson will learn enough this week where he can handle some of the workload.
When it comes to Breece Hall or Javonte Williams, if you're in a keeper league, dynasty league, are you confident with him starting those guys starting next year or not really?
I'm confident that they'll start next year, but one of the projects I'm going to set for myself this offseason is how and why players aren't as effective in their first year back following a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And it's something that I really have to dig into, and I started thinking about it with Saquon Barkley, because it wasn't last year when Saquon tore his ACL. It was 2 years ago. And then last year he had all kinds of nagging injuries and some bad luck on top of it. really wasn't at the top of his game. And now you look at him 2 years after the torn ACL, he's doing great. Chris Godwin's coming off of an ACL this year. He hasn't looked like himself. J.K. Dobbins can't stay on the field. Gus Edwards is coming off of an ACL. We saw him play well against Cleveland last week, but really I think a lot of that had to do, or some of it had to do, with the defense that he was playing and some of it with the blocking that he had. He didn't look like an explosive runner, just a powerful runner. So I'm a little bit worried about what it means for Breece Hall and Javonte Williams going into 2023. And I will probably be a little bearish on them when it comes to ranking them next year because they're coming back from such significant surgeries.
You know, Dave, when you look at some of these leagues, higher scoring leagues, and now that there's some buys for some top players like quarterbacks, are there any teams like defensive teams or defensive players that could really push you over the top if you're in a really competitive game available out there in the waiver, or just teams that you should look for in general?
Well, it's an excellent question. The first thing that I would point out is go do a double check to make sure that the Eagles and the Bills are not available as far as DSTs go, because they were on bye last week. There might have been some fantasy managers that cut them. On CBS, you're not going to find them. They're already rostered already, but on some other sites, you might find them. You can pick them up and never take them out of your lineup. Those are good defensive units that you don't have to worry about bye weeks anymore because they've already had them. But one thing that you need to do, and this is something that a smart fantasy manager does, is they always weigh the DST that they have versus the other DSTs that are available. And if you've got a slam dunk unit, if it's the Eagles, the Bills, I think the Cowboys would qualify. 49ers, I think, still qualify as a slam dunk unit. You don't have to bother double checking. But if you've been getting by with the Broncos, or maybe it's the Titans, you might want to just double check and see what other DSTs are out there, which ones have a pretty good matchup. For example, this week I like the Titans DST. I like their matchup. The Commanders, I like their matchup. They're taking on the Colts with Sam Ehlinger as their new quarterback. So there's all kinds of opportunities out there if you don't have a DST that you completely trust, regardless of the matchup.
Dave, I got a couple health-related guys, Evans and Waller. Do I sit these guys, or do I keep them in my lineup?
You're asking about Mike Evans and Darren Waller?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think Evans is going to be good to go. It's the short week game. Not the easiest matchup for Brady, and honestly, I think Brady just wasn't himself last week. Neither was Evans. Evans dropped that walk-in touchdown on a deep bomb. I know you saw it. And he had another drop on top of it. There was a 25-yard pass that went right through his hands. I'm starting him until I see Darren Waller practicing again. He's kind of out of my mind as someone that I want to start. He's got to stay on the bench. Dulcich, that's a name that I already gave you at tight end. He's available. Evan Ingram's another one, although I don't love his matchup. Cade Otton is an interesting guy. He's had at least 10 PPR points in each of 2 games he's played as the main tight end for Tampa Bay, and he's going to see a lot of snaps in play this week against Baltimore.
I got a quick one. At the flex, I got 3 names. You tell me which one I should play.
Okay.
Brandon Ayuk, Brandon Cooks, or Herbert from the running back.
Khalil Herbert.
From Chicago. Yeah, it's going to be Ayuk. We've seen him really put up great numbers the past couple of weeks. He's seen double-digit targets each of the past couple of weeks. And the thing that he's had in common with those games is that the 49ers have trailed and lost those games. They're taking on the Rams this week. Usually the 49ers handle the Rams. They do a good job against them. So I'm a little bit nervous about Ayuk, but I'm less nervous about him than I am the other guys that you're considering. Brandon Cooks has been on the side of a milk carton. No one knows what's happened to him. He's just been getting double teamed a lot, and the quarterback there has been so up and down in Houston. He's bench material as well.
James Conner coming back this week, you think?
I don't know. And even if he is, Bull, I'm not sure if he's the best running back for this offense.
Eno Benjamin's been good.
He really he surprised me. He was somebody that I was not very high on when he came out of college, and even 2 weeks ago. Just wasn't very high on him. Didn't expect him to be as good as he's been. This Cardinals offense, I think they're trending in the right direction. Their defense is definitely trending in the right direction. They might end up being a lot better than we thought that they would be, and that's going to lead to opportunities for their run game in general. Benjamin's much more explosive than James Conner from what we've seen so far this season.
Before we let you go, McNuggets has some viewer questions. Mike, you want to rip them
We
off
got these real quick, and they're always brought to us by PCC Airfoils. Looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. Apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more. We're going to play Eddie's jingle after Dave gets off with Dave. Expensive Jet wants to know, do I even bother keeping Cam Akers through the deadline, or do I cut bait now?
It depends on who else is out there and how badly you need a running back. But if you're kind of in a situation where you're good with your lineup and you don't need to pick anybody up, yeah, you hang on to Akers through the trade deadline and see what happens.
And this from some Corey Noble. Hey, Dave, should I trade Aaron Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Kamara and Najee Harris in a half PPR league? Haven't been using
Sounds
CE
good to
much
me.
anyway.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Kamara's certainly got a lot of upside left, and you're not quite selling high on Aaron Jones, but I'm not sure how many games he's going to have, like the one he had last week where he caught 2 touchdowns. Really don't see that happening. This Packers offense is kind of a mess right now.
That it is.
Awesome. Dave, thanks as always.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, man.
Talk to you later.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me.